Chair and Vice Chair of the Council aren't able to be with us this evening, so we're going to have to elect a chairman for the meeting from those assembled councillors here. Could I call for nominations, please, for chair of this meeting?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Maggie Hooker.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Any other nominees? Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Maggie, would you like to...
Thank you. Well, this is a bit of a surprise. Before we start the agenda part of the meeting, I'd like us to stand for 1 minute on behalf of Councillor Muriel Jollis, who has retired but died at the beginning of April, and her funeral was this week, so if we can stand for her. I believe that Councillor David Carter wants to say a few words on behalf of Muriel.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. On Monday morning, I received a phone call. Before I picked the phone up, I knew what it was going to say. It was Joshua, and he told me that Muriel had passed away during the night. I've known Muriel for over 20 years. Being Jewish, she had fought prejudice all her life. But she was a prominent member of the interfaith group and was always trying to bring people together. It was Muriel who first got me to stand for council, and we became great friends. She was married to Josh for 59.5 years, most of which was an infight between the two of them. However, she was a fierce supporter of Josh and woe betide you to take his name in vain. She worked tirelessly for her residents. She had 3 children and numerous grandchildren. At her funeral, I was asked to put some earth on her coffin with members of her family. I considered this to be a great honour, and she will be missed by me and her family. And as far as I'm concerned, Muriel was an absolute star lady. Thank you.
And I believe that Councillor Tony Durkin would like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. On behalf of the Labour Group and actually the Labour Party, can we actually express our sadness and sympathy to the passing of Muriel? And I think we were all sad when we knew how ill she was, but even sadder when we knew that life had ebbed away from her. We want to send our love and support to Muriel's family, friends, and actually her political colleagues at this particular time. Muriel, on her night, was a powerhouse and a strong advocate. And actually, as David has said, when she was on the zone, if you crossed her, you knew about it. And she used to bring her teaching skills into play to make sure that we did the right thing Muriel's way. She was caring and she was compassionate, and she could understand other people's issues and was prepared to bend and blend to make sure we made the right decision for the right reasons. She was a strong advocate for local residents' associations, and I think she was probably one of the hardest working councillors who attended residents' associations, but actually brought back their concerns into this very room and made that difference. She was hard-working and would work with everybody to try to make that difference. She was an environmental champion for Harlow, and again, over the years, many of us have had the pleasure of sitting next to Muriel when she was on her charge over these particular issues. And I hate to say, quite a lot of the time she was right over those particular issues. So it's really sad that we've lost another pioneer of this town. She was about change, and she brought about change, and that change made a difference to everybody in this town that we love. So, as David said, Muriel was a legend, she was a lady, and she was a friend. So we are sad that she's gone, but we will not forget the mark that she made that affects everybody today and the future. So our sympathies go with all her friends and colleagues. Thank you.
Could I also ask, on behalf of the councillors, get well cards sent to both Edna and Sue, because they can't be here tonight. I'm sure everyone will agree that that would be a good idea to follow through. And now we will go back to the items. Okay, item 1, apologies for accents. Councillor Kerber?
Obviously, Councillor Edna Stevens and Councillor Mark Ingle.
Thank you. Councillor Churchill?
Thank you. Councillor Perrin and Councillor Livingston.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Anybody got any? Okay. Item 3, minutes of the last 3 meetings on page 417. That's the 2nd of February, the special meeting on the 23rd of February, and the 16th of March. Can I sign these 3?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I'll take a bit of time. Thanks. Okay. Item 4, communications from the Chair, obviously there are none. Petitions, item 5 from the public, we haven't got any. Item 6, questions from the public, we haven't got any. And item 7, questions from councillors. Councillor David Carter, I believe you've got a question for Councillor Jonathan.
Madam Chairman, my question is, like many people in Harlow, I received leaflets offering doorstop loans, one of which offers loans with an APR of 299.3%. What is the council doing to make people aware of the pitfalls of these doorstop loans?
The council can, within its discretion, do a range of things for the benefit of residents, but does not have any statutory function where as far as making residents aware of lending options is concerned, and it does not regulate lending. This aside, the council wishes to do all it can to alert residents to the pitfalls of doorstep loans, and in the coming months we'll run a communications campaign to alert residents to these. Historically, the council has promoted the credit union as a better way of, if necessary, borrowing small sums of money. The council will continue to work with Harlow Save, the local credit union, to increase Harlow residents' awareness of the benefits and how they can provide more affordable services such as loans, savings accounts and money management services.
Councillor Carter, do you have a supplementary?
No, Madam Chairman, I don't have a supplementary. I'd just like to thank the council leader for keeping this in high profile.
Okay. Now we come on to item 8, motions from councillors, and this is the Gender Equality in Harlow Council motion, and it's been proposed by Councillor Emma Toole and seconded by Councillor Jean Clark. And Councillor Clark, would you like to right, okay, sorry.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Sometimes certain events and certain things happen and they jog our memory and they remind us that sometimes we need to do the right thing. Many things have done that recently for me. International Women's Day this year, it got me thinking about a lot of things that we're talking about and some of the conversations we're still having in 2017 about there still being a gender pay gap and there still being inequalities. I'm very proud to be one of the female councillors in this council. I'm very proud that over time we've increased our representation of women in the council, and I'm sure both sides will try to, or side teams will try to continue to do that because it is an important thing. Representation does matter. Being in positions and having power in hands of a diverse group is important. For me, being part of the council is looking at what we can do. I think often as a council we're community leaders and we should lead by example. I'd actually start by actually saying that I welcome today's announcements by the government and congratulate them. Something like this is bigger than party politics for me, and when someone does something right, I think that should be celebrated. And the government's announcement today on making it a statutory requirement for all anybody with over 250 employees to do a gender audit and publish it is really, really positive and a huge step forward. Because sometimes if we don't know these issues, we can't address them. We can think there's issues. Actually, gender equality works both ways. There's many industries where it's very female dominated and we need to do things to address that, just as many industries are male dominated. And when we look at the council, I think it's important that we take it seriously. The last time we did anything like this was 2015 when we did our people resources plan. And we looked at how women were doing in the organisation and how many levels. And I think it's important that going forward we make this a regular thing and obviously wait for more details to come out from the government at how exactly they would like it, but this is a big step for us saying we want to do this, we welcome this and we will take it seriously. And if it isn't favourable then we will take that seriously as well. It's big steps forward. That's one issue. I also think there's a really important issue that language matters and we can't pretend that it doesn't matter. There's a reason why we don't call policemen anymore, they're police officers, because they're women that also do the role. There's a reason why many of these jobs, and it might be a small thing for some people, but it matters. It matters to many women in the community, it matters to many men about gender equality. I've always found it outdated since I've been in this council that the role of chairman of this council and committees is chairman. It is the only role in the council that is gendered. There are no other roles in the council, everything else is gender neutral. And I just find this outdated. I find that language does matter. It might be a small thing, but it does. And I think that if we're going to take a lead on issues like this to make sure that we are promoting equality and diversity, that we take a look and that the main representative of us as a civic body is not using a gendered term. It's a small issue. And I'm happy for after this to go away in the Constitution Committee to mean exactly what that means, where it means chair, chairperson, whatever is the Council and our Constitution Committee feels comfortable with. I just think it's really important today that we take a step forward. One, we welcome the role of women in the town. It's actually a majority of women in Harlow, as there is 51% in the country, but we actually got a bigger majority here in Harlow. But we welcome them, we welcome their role in civic life, we welcome their role in the life of our town. And we send a strong message today that we do welcome gender equality, we welcome the government's announcement and we will be doing gender ourselves and we'll stop using terms that are just very out of date. Thank you, Chair.
Then the second one is the constitutional change of language, incorporating general gender neutral terms. And that is a very modest proposal. The Labour Party discussed this in the 80s, early 80s, and the sky didn't fall in when we started to change our language. Then we introduced it at the council, which was ridiculed as political correctness gone mad, chairs, furniture, and all this sort of thing. And then ultimately, unfortunately, the Conservatives reversed it. I did notice at the last meeting that everyone opposite addressed Edna as Madam Chairman. And Mike reminded me of a friend's response to this when she said, "I am neither a madam nor a man." And I think it's quite appropriate. I'm sure Edna would say this, I assume she would say the same thing. It's not a trivial matter. Language is powerful. Language matters, as Edna said. Emma says, not Edna. It's highly symbolic and sends a message to women on the staff, to the community in general, and especially to children. At the moment, our language reinforces gender inequalities, so it's extremely important to reflect the times and changing times and present gender-neutral terms like chair or chairperson, for example, when we consider positions of office. So I'm pleased to second chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I now open it up to debate, and Councillor Charles, I believe you start.
Madam Chairman, I wish to propose an amendment to the motion. I propose to delete section B, which reads to change the Council's constitution so that the current titles of Chairman of the Council and Vice Chairman of the Council and Chairman of other committees are gender neutral and for them to be addressed in meetings as such. I propose that section B is removed from the motion, and I'd like to reserve my right to speak.
Okay. So we're seconding. Is that seconding?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Oh, sorry.
Oh, a big moment.
Oh, I don't speak at all in the chair and suddenly have to sit down again.
Don't worry.
Oh, back at school.
Thank you, and I apologise.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Haynes.
I'm just slightly concerned that Councillor Charles' motion or amendment may negate what is being put forward.
Yes, it
It doesn't negate the first part, but it totally negates the second part.
It's not an amendment.
Yeah.
It doesn't negate the basis of the motion.
Disagree.
The motion is still talking about gender equality. It doesn't debase that.
Okay, it talks about language. You'll continue.
I'm happy to. I won't debate this. I mean, it's much future. We've neither accepted or not accepted.
It's not an amendment. It's a change, removing something from the actual motion. Right, carry on.
Go on, show me your moments go.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure it's going to be brilliant.
Oh, I'm sure it won't. You have to forgive my voice, typical Finnish teaching, get cold. So forgive me, please. So, gender equality. Definition. The state in which access to rights and opportunities is unaffected by gender. I don't honestly believe that anyone in this chamber has any issue with equal rights for councillors, council employees, based upon their gender. Just as I don't believe that anyone in this chamber has an issue with equal rights on the basis of sexuality, colour, religion, or for that matter, hair colour or baldness.
Sorry, father-in-law.
And Dad. And I have no problem promoting gender equality in this council. We should be promoting gender equality for all. Yeah, only women on this side. I have no problem with a gender audit. Our HR department should be able to produce an audit at the touch of a button. But going to the council's constitution and reams of documentation to erase the word chairman, oh, give me a break. I have no problem with being called chairman, nor does it demean me as a woman. I was proud to be chairman of the planning committee for 2 years, just as I'm sure the last 7 chairmen out of 14 were proud to be Madam Chairman. Andrew and I are currently lucky enough to be raising a well-rounded lady in Lexi. I'm happy if she played with a Barbie doll, or even a Nerf gun, usually aimed at Andrew. She actually loves doing both. And I want her to be able to earn as much, if not more than, any money in the job that she chooses to do. I want her to be in control of her body and be respected as such. But I honestly don't feel that the continued use of the word chairman in the world will stop her achieving those things. I do question, however, Madam Chairman, once this language police starts, exactly where will it stop? As a teacher, I've had to change calling a blackboard to a chalkboard, a whiteboard to a writing board, for fear of inherent racism in our language. Or when we can no longer talk about brainstorming for fear of being sensitive to those with mental illness. Or when American midwives have to refer to birthing individuals rather than mothers, so as not to offend even, transgender people. Well, Madam Chairman, I think we need to draw a line in the sand and concentrate on more important issues in this country. Actual racism, anti-Semitism, than perceived gender language. As a young Jewish woman, I'm still young, surprisingly enough, I'm far more offended about the refusal to throw out an anti-Semite than going through the language of the Constitution and removing the word man. Is it going to change Manchester eventually? Ultimately, I don't need a lesson in female gender promotion from a group who want to play gender equality by tinkering language. Come back and talk to me when you've had 2 female leaders and 2 female prime ministers. The Scots and the Welsh have done exactly the same. So I've got no problem promoting gender equality. But when I think about this, I think, WWMS, what would Margaret say? Well, she certainly wouldn't say, this person's not for turning. This lady certainly isn't. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
So we are now debating on the amendment. Councillor Toole.
I respect Councillor Johnson and her opinion. I disagree. I fundamentally disagree. And okay, you won't take a lecture from me as another female woman because I obviously should be lecturing. I didn't think that was what I was doing. I thought I was using my democratic rights for a motion on the issue that I believe in. I don't believe I'm lecturing anyone. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I fundamentally believe that. And I'm equally as outraged about the issues around anti-Semitism in the party. I'm sure many of my colleagues on this side don't disagree greatly with the decision this week. But that is outside of the point of this thing. I agree with all Conte. Quite often when you talk about it, you try to take a positive action on one single step. It's always lumped in with, what about this, what about this, what about this. I think everything's equally important. I think we've got a big issue with voter representation in the council. Look around, I think there's a massive, huge issue. We need to do something about that. I think we need to do stuff about all of this. Of course, making sure we're representative, not discriminating based on sex, race, religion. All these things are very important. But that doesn't negate from what we're talking about today. I don't think that you should be afraid to tackle one issue when you can, because it doesn't tackle all the issues. In fact, that kind of argument's been used time and time again and has held back equality movements. And I do think we need to do that, and I'd welcome motions from the other side and how we can increase different diversity into things. I know Councillor Carter's often bringing up about disability and diversity, and I completely recognise that that's something, again, we need to work harder on the council. And I recognise this. I don't think it's one is more important than the other. I think all these things are equally important, but I fundamentally disagree that language does matter, it does impact, and I do think that figurehead of the council and the civic role should be gender neutral. There's no intention to space every single word we use. I do think this is an important issue, and I will not be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else on this amendment? Councillor Duff.
Well, quite frankly, the amendment's silly. Because actually, if you look at the body of the motion, it clearly says it's about language, and that therefore we are removing the very essence of what we are arguing about, and actually the very essence of something that we can influence and make a difference for. So for this to be deleted is quite frankly silly, and should and hopefully will be defeated. Because gender affects everybody. We can talk about disability, we can talk about race, but that affects gender. So unless we're going to start at a place that controls and helps everybody, then we're never going to move forward about it. And actually, Emily's completely right. Language and communication is our source of engagement between each party and each group. And therefore, as Emma quite rightly says, as champions and advocates for our town, shouldn't we stand up and say that actually these civic roles should be gender neutral? Now, I would say If the chairman says, however, I don't mind being called da-da-da, that's absolutely fine. I would respect that and I would honour it because they are in a position of influence and we would be supportive. And it's absolutely, how low can we go when actually the only single quote that the Conservatives can come up with is Margaret Thatcher. One of the most cruelest people, one of the most hated politicians, one of the nastiest people that destroyed our economy and the north and all particular areas, that if they could only go back in history, and that is the one quote they can say, that tells you what era the Conservatives are in, and it tells you a lot about the real era that the Labour administration is, which is supporting, enabling and encouraging everybody in our society to have the same opportunities. So language is important, communication is important, this motion is important, and unfortunately what we have just heard is not that important, and I hope it's dismissed. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to debate on the amendment? Okay, so we'll...
Right.
Thank you, Chair. Language is very important. Last time I looked at myself in the mirror, I was a woman. And I've been a chair before, and I was called Madam Chairman, but I'm not a man, I'm a woman. And for Councillor Johnson to say that, yes, the government, well, their group, their party actually has 2 women leader, yes, I agree, but look at this group here. You know, where's your gender equality? It's very, very important we encourage to have women in certain roles. I work in the NHS where we are actually more women. And when you look at how many women are in high posts, not many. And not many black women either. So a lot of men tend to get in those high posts instead of women. So it's very important. And like I said, with language, it's very important as well. I do not want to be called a man, because I'm not a man. So I always address the chairman as chair, because it's gender neutral. But by the end of the day, it's what the Constitution wants to apply. I agree with it. But as far as I know, I'm not a man. So when I'm a chair, I do not want to be called a chairman. Thank you.
Any other councillors before we go back to Councillor Charles? Okay. You're not going to? Right, okay. So we'll vote on that amendment. Those in favour of the amendment, put your hands up, please. Those against that amendment? Okay, that's lost. We now go back to the substantive motion and we debate that. Okay. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's important to start off my comments by focusing on the positives. And Councillor Toole has rightly today acknowledged the government announcement that UK companies with 250 workers will have to publish a gender pay gap report. I think that's a positive step, and actually what we're seeing from this government, and particularly Justin Green, who leads in these matters for the government, a raft of measures to support equality across the board. I think it's also important tonight to thank the people that make a huge contribution to this council. Our 2 women representatives that stand up and lead this council, the Deputy Chair and Chair of this council, and the excellent work they do. It's also important to praise council officers, past and present, who have made an outstanding contribution to the work of this council over the decades. People like Lynn Seward, a former senior director at this council, Kath Shaw, who was a deputy chief executive of this council, rose to the very top. And also managers like Marisha Rogers, who day in, day out, do a huge amount of work for this town. So I think it's important in this debate to recognise individuals across the board. And let's of course not forget the work of Janet and Lisa, who deal with our queries day in and day out, and the excellent contribution they make, and they keep us organised. So I think we should praise them and take that opportunity to do so. But what I also want to say is, what I'm concerned about is the tone of this motion tonight. What is important is, yes, the Council's action to address the pay gap in Harlow Council. And what I would have liked to see in this motion, rather than a very quick desktop exercise or spend hours upon hours, days upon days, redrafting the Constitution, is solid concrete steps upon how Harlow Council was going to address the pay gap in this local authority. I think that would have been a more substantive and important debating point tonight. Unfortunately, the tone of this motion as we progress has turned into somewhat of a student union politics. And student unions love to put forward motions over the language and tone of things. And I think full council is devalued by that kind of rhetoric. And I think we should avoid that where best. I think it's also concerning that we seem to be, at this moment in time, trying to invent inequality. I don't think there is inequality in this town. I don't think there is inequality so much in this council because of the senior women that play a pivotal role in the lives, not just in the politics of this town, but also in our local authority. This motion, frankly, is a distraction. What we should be talking about tonight, as well, is the local economy, the infrastructure in this town. Labour hasn't put that forward, and we're only a few weeks away from important county council elections. Those are the sorts of things that full council should be debating more in this chamber, and not resorting to student union politics. I must confess, Madam Chairman, I've always been a strong believer in meritocracy. And no matter who you are, whether you're a man or a woman, in this council you rise to the top, and we should celebrate that. Thank you.
Anyone else want to debate the motion? Okay. Councillor Toole, would you like to sum up, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry if my contributions to the council, Councillor Charles devalues it. I just felt it's an important issue as a woman myself, and something to bring forward and to make things. Because actually tonight, Margaret Thatcher was quoted, and something I've always fundamentally believed is that every glass ceiling that I break, I will have a ladder and I will hand up to the next woman to follow so they had an easier step. Unlike what Maggie Thatcher did, which was break that glass ceiling, kick down the ladder and seal the hole. And that is not my style of leadership. That has never been my style of things. I also appreciate Councillor Charles doesn't feel there is any equality. With all due respect, if you're not a female in this council, you've not been a female in town, and you're born with basically a life chance that says you're not quite there. This council has generally been great, the councillors council in this chamber, on both sides. I found it very, very welcome, but there has been cultural issues. There has been individual issues. There's been individual issues I've heard from other female councillors' side, comments of committees that are unfair and would not happen to a man about what their right to chair a meeting is. And when they're actually very qualified, for example, which happened recently, and I was pretty outraged. About there's many women in this chamber that have found it very difficult.
I'm very sorry, but I can only just make out what Emma is saying.
Okay,
sometimes when she puts her head down, I can't
sorry. Sorry, yeah. Okay. I think we've made huge steps in this country, in this town. I hope that to pretend there's no barriers is just to ignore facts, to ignore that women at 18% have paid 80% less than average than men, that there's a day in November that effectively women could stop getting paid and stop working, that women are dying every week at the hands of their partners. There are many things that I can't physically do something about and I strive to that are bigger issues than one motion tonight. This is a one step towards a much bigger issue and a range of issues in this area I think we need to address. But this is something we can do now. This council employs more women than men, and in Harlow, women outnumber men. It's about time that we took that seriously. that those were there. When there's 50% women in this chamber, when there's 50% women in Parliament, then maybe I would step back a bit and relax a little bit about this. When women are represented equally on boards in private companies, maybe I would relax a bit. When I have children, if my daughter has the same life choices and the same realistic aims as my son, then I would relax. I believe that things have been made huge steps forward, and I always welcome progress. That doesn't mean you stop. You keep going, and when we get there, well then we can have a motion to congratulate. And I'd also say that yes, you're right, other motions can be put, and the Tories have chosen not to put motions tonight. So that's your choice if you didn't want to discuss the things that you wanted. You were just as welcome as I was to use your democratic right to move in second. So I don't think criticise this motion over others when you haven't put one in yourself, which is very wrong. So I'm standing here, I'm asking for support on all sides. I don't think it's going to be a controversial motion. It wasn't meant to be overly controversial, it wasn't meant to be party political. It was genuinely meant to be something that we can hopefully address together. I think it's quite small steps, and what I like out of this is for us to take a longer, harder look at ourselves and just see, we're not in a bad place, but how can we get better? Because that is what I think we all should in every area of equality. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Right, we're going to come to the vote now, but it's going to be a recorded vote.
Okay, I'll probably do. Sorry, can I go for a recorded vote? 22 for recorded. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's coming out.
Those against?
If councillors could say for, against, abstain the motion when I call their name. Councillor Beckett? For. Councillor David Carter?
Abstain.
Councillor Simon Carter?
Abstain.
Councillor Charles?
Abstain.
Councillor Churchill?
Abstain.
Councillor Clark?
For.
Councillor John Klebner?
For.
Councillor Callum Klebner?
For.
Councillor Danvers?
For.
Councillor Davis?
For.
Councillor Durkin?
For.
Councillor Foreman?
For.
Councillor Garnett?
Abstain.
Councillor Hall?
Abstain.
Councillor Holcoop?
For.
Councillor Andrew Johnson?
Abstain.
Councillor Eddie Johnson?
Abstain.
Councillor Shona Johnson?
Abstain.
Councillor Long?
For.
Councillor Mullard?
For.
Councillor Pryor?
For.
Councillor Purton?
For.
Councillor Shears?
For.
Councillor Souter?
Abstain.
Councillor Strachan?
For.
Councillor Toll?
For.
Councillor Truan?
For.
Councillor Waite?
For.
Councillor Wilkinson?
For.
The decision is for the motion 19, none against, and 10 abstentions, so the motion is carried.
Okay. Right. We'll now go on to item 9, references from Cabinet and committees. There are none. Item 10, report from officers. There are none. The annual reports, item 11, that's the noting on pages 18 to 20. And taking in bulk, the item 10, the noting items A to H. Okay, item 13, matters of urgent business. There are none. Now we get to item 14, exclusion of the press.